Hello, sir.
Okay, like I really did not calculate how much time I needed to get to the place I need to be this morning.
It's all good.
I'm literally like 90 seconds around the corner here, so I'm headed out to the property that I'm building. A year ago, I decided I needed to design from scratch and build a net zero energy, sustainable, carbon neutral house for a friend of mine who lost his house, autistic daughter, and works for public school district. So that's where I'm headed, because after your meeting, I got to meet the certified solar installer who will check and make sure I've wired everything up correctly so I don't blow the place up.
Right. That wouldn't be good, probably.
No, I mean, all that hard work, literally up in smoke. That would suck. So I'm just like around the corner, but I wanted to call so you guys wouldn't wonder.
Oh, no worries, man.
So let me get my headset, and that way you guys can have better audio. And my stuff here. Let's see. We'll do. Why am I holding it up to my face? It's a Zoom call. I literally changed to treating it like a phone call. That was great. I was like, yeah, dudes. How does the inside of my ear look? Pretty good? Yeah, man.
Yeah, good thing the hands-free portion is done. You can finally hold it up to your face.
So anyway, I mean, I don't know what we're chatting about when I'm here. We chit-chat about things. I have yellow things coming out of the back of my head. This is exciting.
Well, I mean, we started a podcast a while back, started throwing out emails like, hey, do you want to talk to us? Some people said yes, and you happen to be one of those people. So
yeah.
How long have you guys been doing your podcast?
August.
Months.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
nice.
a handful.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride too. We never expected to get half the people that we've talked to. We've
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Voiceover people are cool. I don't know who else.
Oh yeah.
Well, cool and apparently
Mostly
very
voiceover.
bored.
Yeah. Well, bored and at home now because of COVID and everything. So
I mean,
it's
we
like
were yelled at. I was trying to be polite, talking to Billy West, and like, you know, he's you must be a busy guy. You must have some interviews to do. He's like, what? You're too fucking good to stick around and talk to me? I'm like, well,
he did too.
all right, we'll do it.
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
And any chance I've gotten a chance to work with him or just sit with him and talk, and he can be quite cantankerous. Like he can be like abrasive and derisive in ways that you're just like thrown aback for a second. You're like, oh yeah, because he's not a dick. That's just who he is. He just loves to ride the edge of comfortable.
I think that's the growing up more on the comedian side.
Yeah.
Before getting into the voiceover side, kind of grinds out those edges. But
and there is a style, like if you were vulnerable at all on stage when they were coming up, you would have been eaten alive.
Yeah.
And these days, like stand-up comics, some of them, especially recently, you almost have to have just a little bit of vulnerability, like just a little, right? And it's interesting. I actually went to LA to be a stand-up comic. So I lived in Lancaster for a little bit, and we would drive down, whatever it is, almost the hour and a half or so to wait in line for the open mic at the Laugh Factory in the Comedy Store, and played. Yeah. And so when I first came to LA, that's what I wanted to do. And it's just, what a scene, what a crazy, crazy way to think you're going to make a living or, you know, be a form of artistic expression. I mean, it wasn't for me. I mean, 9:30 rolls around and I'm like, I'm not a night owl at all. And so like I'd end up at 1 o'clock up on stage, and I don't even know if I was coherent at that point.
Well, sometimes that's when you're the funniest though, right?
Yeah, not me. No, because narcolepsy isn't funny. It's funny for like 5 seconds, and then I don't have narcolepsy. You hit the ground but then I was doing this routine one time at the Ice House and in Pasadena. And I just thought it would be so funny to put the trash can that was on stage over my head and do an impersonation of Bill Clinton going to jail. And when I went to put the trash can over my head, it sliced my thumb open.
Oh no.
And you cannot be funny while the audience is worried for your safety and their safety. It's impossible. So yeah, there were many lowlights in my short stand-up comedy career. I mean, there were some highlights. Like I was in front of a room at 300 people at the Coach House and own the place. And it was like the most incredible feeling in the world. So, but that was just not how I was going to end up doing my art professionally. Voiceover, I've always been able to do voices, but I just fell into it. I just wanted any way of working. I was a bottle rocket pointed at Los Angeles, and I was like, I'm going to do this thing.
Right.
Young and naive and trying everything. I had made a cassette tape.
Yeah.
I had made a cassette tape of these voices that I did in this cartoon that I wrote. And I was passing it around town, and nobody wanted to pay attention to me at all. And finally, I kept sticking my head into I got a commercial agent, SBV, in LA for on-camera commercials. And they had a voiceover department, a rather famous voiceover department. Like Troy Baker was represented by them all the way up until a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I would always stick my head in to the voiceover department when I was walking in to the commercial division and just make funny voices and say hello and just annoy the shit of them. Absolutely. Annoy the crap out of them. And they told eventually one day, they were like, all right, Jason, we have this non-union voiceover thing since I was non-union at the time for sightings. It was a paranormal show,
like UFO type,
like on Paramount, I think.
Oh, nice.
And they're like, you have to call this phone number, read this couple of lines. You're a young Hebrew kid. You saw this UFO. Here, do it. And so I found a friend of mine, not Jewish. I found a friend of mine who, was Jewish and went to Hebrew school. And I was like, hey, could you do a Hebrew accent for me? And oh God, I sound like I was 18 at the time. I think I was like 20. And he did. And I called and I left a message and they said, okay, yeah, he got the role, but just tell him just not so hard, no thick on the accent. He does like we can barely understand him. And so after that, I said to him, hey, look, I booked this role. Can you give me a general? And a general was a way where you would go in and read copy for them and animation or commercial auditioning for the agency.
Yeah.
So they gave me a general. And I did absolutely terrible at reading commercial copy. And I did great at doing these crazy voices. And they're like, we'll represent you for a year. So they did. I didn't book a single thing. And then they dropped me. And I was like, no, my career is over before it has begun. No. And I went to see one of the casting directors that saw me while I was with SPV was Elaine Craig. And her casting studio does a lot of work out of LA. And she gave me a chance when I did not have an agent. I just called there and said, look, SPV dropped me, but if you guys have anything that comes by that might be right for me, can you just call me in? And she did. So I actually think she is quite responsible for my career.
So we can blame her.
Not only, and I've told her this since then, because I've gone in now that I've been 23 years in the business, and I've gone in, I think it was just a few years ago, and I was like, hey, Elaine, just so you know, like you're the reason that I got to play the Joker and Kid Flash, and my IMDb is, 30 pages long. She's like, really? I go, yeah, just wanted to thank you for taking a chance on me. And I got to tell it to her face that she was responsible for really me starting out, because she called me in for an AM PM audition and a 7-Eleven audition while I had no agent, which is not completely unheard of, but pretty unheard of at the time in the situation. And I actually booked them without an agent.
Hell yeah,
dude. So that was awesome. And then when I was in there, I was like, look, if you guys know any voiceover agents that, need somebody of my timbre, then just let me know. And sure enough, after, I don't know, I think it was 6 to 8 months without an agent, wondering if I should go home, I got a call, and Elaine Craig said, here, we'll pass your info on to TGI, which became Vox, which is my current agent. I've been with them for 20 plus years now.
Oh, okay.
And I said, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And then I went in and I did, it wasn't a general, it was just a meeting with all the agents at TGI. And within 30 minutes, I had them all laughing in the room and everything. It was much less of a detached experience than it was at SBV. It was very much, they got in the room, they saw my personality, they saw what I could do in the room with them, and just had them all rolling and everything. And they, a week later, I was on Nickelodeon on Rocket Powered.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
That's probably one of the first things.
So it's like, woo! After that, it was a lot easier, you know.
Because a lot of your earlier works with the Rocket Power and the Escalade and the
Initial
Tony Hawk
D.
Underground 2, Zatch Bell.
Tony Hawk Underground 2. You know what I played in Tony Hawk Underground 2? Have you played the game? You ever played the game?
Yeah, I love
Paulie the Wheels of Fury Ryan.
Yeah.
So he's the guy stuck in the chair because he's always burned himself, you know, and he's in traction the entire game. And so this is how I did the voice.
Paulie Wheels of Fury Ryan, whooping your ass.
Like, I put my finger here because he had the headgear and he couldn't talk.
Yeah, baby, I'm Paulie Wheels of Fury.
and that's how I did Paulie Wheels of Fury Ryan.
The only thing I didn't like about that game was it was too short.
Right.
It wasn't a long enough game.
Yeah, it was pretty brief.
But
I remember they actually called me for the debut of that game to kind of do a remote recording where I was Paulie talking to Wee Man and like ripping on him. I was ripping on him as Paulie. That was such a fun time, man.
Do you, from all the stuff you've done, do you watch any of the shows or read any of the manga or comic books from any of the
No, I don't do, and I don't even play games. I'm like busy. I'm building this house here. I got 2 kids and like I don't have much free time. Like the word free time, you know, free time is time that someone doesn't pay me to do auditions. It's free time. I don't have any that I don't have dedicated to something else. So I don't. My daughter, however, is very into manga, and my youngest, and loves to also draw the art and read. Nice. And she's a future budding makeup artist too. So yeah, I mean, that's present in my family. It's just not me. I mean, I don't have time to do all that stuff.
No, I understand.
But I like it. But like Scryed, Ryuho. I really love the stories. Like I started out in anime, oddly enough, like some of the very first work that I ever did. I mean, even Transformers RID was an anime version of Transformers. And I really enjoyed a lot of that work. So that's where I cut my teeth. I cut my teeth in anime. It was a blast. I had the best time. It was so fun working with Jamie Simone, and I still work with him to this day. And so many wonderful, talented people that I met and got to, you don't really work with people when you're doing dubbing. You're by yourself in a booth, but still you'd pass them when you'd leave the booth, they'd go in, or you'd talk to them outside or whatever, and Steve Bloom and James Arnold Taylor. And, it was just a really fun time. And a lot of the age of innocence in a way. And it was before anime really became what it is today. Because the Comic-Cons weren't really a huge thing. I mean, they were, but they were more comic book oriented back then. Mm-hmm. And I even did some recently, Tiger and Bunny. They asked me to come and do that. And then Disc Wars was also an anime thing where I played Deadpool. So I still do from time to time go back to the roots and do a little anime.
I think like my kids, they probably know you best from the Hal Jordan DC Hero Girls.
Oh yeah, DC Superhero Girls. Oh man, when I got cast in that, first of all, that series had been a web series, I think, prior to that, the DC Superhero Girls, and then this edition for Cartoon Network, I think it was was Lauren Faust, and she's a genius creator, very, very funny lady, and getting to work with her was just like a bucket list check off. And dudes, it's like 4th down and we're ready to go. We're not out of it yet. Like Hal Jordan, he's just so, why are you even here? Who are you? He's so clueless, and he's exactly how I always pictured Hal Jordan in the comics. like if you were to do a caricature of who he is, it's such a perfect send up of who Hal is, like in the comics and everything. And the fact that he's afraid of Star Sapphire, like she literally scares him to death. Is it Carol? Is she here? Oh my God! Like this is his mind, and he's shaking. I just really love the way that they've sent up all those characters.
You've had the honor of playing quite a few characters in the comic book universe. Hal Jordan, the Joker, Scorpion.
The Joker.
You did Kid Flash, didn't you?
Yeah, Kid Flash.
Some people say I did Kid Flash. Yeah. Forager now.
Who's your favorite Joker? If you had to take yourself out of the running.
I really like Hamill's Joker, and the biggest reason is because if you watch the very first time Mark ever got to do the Joker in that very first cartoon.
Yeah.
And then you listen to him in the games where, the latest, Arkham game and stuff, that you just see a wonderful evolution and an incredible breadth of all the different ways that the Joker is still Mark's Joker, but they're not the same.
No,
they're not even close. So the reason I would give it to him is because he's like the longest running. It's like somebody playing Hamlet on Broadway for 20 years. Right. And like for some magic reason, they're still playing Hamlet, and it's 20 years later. It would be an incredible run. You'd be like, look at all the different ways that this has been given to us artistically. So hard to beat.
And the Batman Hush, I didn't know they did a movie because you
didn't know that?
No, one of
it's
our
a great
fans,
comic.
Yeah, one of our fans recommended the comic to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a novel, graphic novel, more like.
Yeah, and when we got in touch with you, I saw that they did the movie. I'm like, holy shit!
You didn't even know that prior to contacting
I did not
me?
know.
Nobody knows that I played the Joker in Batman Hush. It's like one of the best. Hush. It's a secret.
And I watched it, and it's so good. It's a really good portrayal.
Yeah. So spoilers for those of you who haven't seen Batman Hush, please go rent it. Please. It's a really well done adaptation. Ernie did such a great job taking what would have been a 3-hour plus treatise and condensing it into a movie that stayed close to the spirit of the graphic novel. And I just, huge props to that. That is very hard to do as a writer, and all the performances are stellar and everything is really great. And my favorite scene that I've acted to date is the alley scene. It's just so violent and visceral and enjoyable to do. It really was, God, that was such a good time too. I mean, I was literally choking myself in the booth. If you ever get a chance to talk to Sam Liu or any of the or Wes Gleason, who is the voice director, and I'm literally there, like, I want you to break your code for something I actually did. Like, it's so, I'm choking myself with my hand, and it was just such a good time from an artistic perspective, to see what they want it to be, to see what they want the audience to feel, that Batman has become so enraged over a thing that's not even real, like phantoms in your head, conspiracy theories, who knows, right? This, what they're saying is that your mind can become so obsessed with a given thing that you can have behavior out of your character. This behavior very out of Batman's character. And what a delicious treat to be able to be the guy who brought it to life. So,
no doubt.
And the laugh, of course, when you're panning up and that's it, So who's Robin these days? The Joker is such a great character to play. Oh, well, back to the grind,
So, speaking of with booths and stuff earlier, one of the favorite things we like to ask is, do you have any like on the job crazy moments or just very silly, humorous moments?
Can you top choking yourself in a booth?
Loads. That's hard to top, to be honest. Yeah. Thankfully, there weren't any complete strangers in the room. We did have to really kiss on Young Justice season 1, which was really weird. So Stephanie Lemlin and I, whose husband is AJ, I love him to death. He's an awesome dude. He's also like a black belt in Krav Maga and would just tear me apart, like beat me with my own arms. And we get to this point in the reading where Greg and Brandon had told Jamie Thompson, the voice director, that they wanted this to be as real as possible. And so we get to the point where we kiss, and she's on a mic over there and I'm on a mic over here. And Jamie goes, "Okay, Jason, I want you to go over to Stephanie's mic." And I was like, my first thought in my brain was that my mic went dead, that my mic was no longer working. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, cool, no problem. I'll go over there. No problem. Technical issue. Got it. I'll share a mic with Stephanie." Sometimes you do that. Sometimes you share a mic with another performer. If there's too many performers in the room and not enough mics, you sit down until it's your turn, and then they sit down and you're sharing a mic. So it's not that different. And then he basically says to us, "Okay, go ahead." We're both looking at each other like, "Go ahead, what?" And basically, once we both realized what was happening, we both turned into like 12-year-olds.
Oh man.
And it was so funny. And of course, being the method actor that I am, the first kiss went very well, but I was like, I think we need to do that again. I don't think I got it right the first time.
We can do it better.
If anybody goes and searches for Stephanie Lemlin right now, they'll see why. So it's fun all the time. You're always making jokes, We were on season 3 of Young Justice, and Troy Baker plays Geoforce, and I saw him coming into the studio, and we do shit like this all the time, where he sees me through the glass in the studio, sitting in there, because I got there before him. He says hi to the engineer and stuff. And then there's this moment where you go to walk in the door of the studio, but you can no longer see through the glass. So I was like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" And then the moment he went out of view, I got up out of my chair and I ran and I hide behind the door. And he comes into the room and he sees his face. It's just like, where the hell Jason going? I go, "What's up, dude?" He's like, "Fuck," it's, we just, we're always being stupid and having a blast. Well, ask me anything. Ask me anything else. When the solar expert arrives, I'll let you guys know. Probably will be around, 15, 20 minutes from now.
As a musician, I ask everybody, what's your favorite music? Do you have a favorite artist or style or song?
Yeah, well, I love classical music. And although I'm not classically trained, I started playing improvisational piano when I was like 8. Oh. And just, I composed my own theme for orchestra for my wedding.
Nice.
And I don't write music. I just use a chord. I use the chord go one, I love to create music. I don't do it as much these days. Like I said, I just have a lot of things I have to do. So,
right.
I really enjoyed techno when so like techno and classical are probably the two things that I, really liked. If I had to look back at my life and say, which kind of music did you really enjoy?
So one of the questions I always like to ask, because it kind of helps people connect a little more, is getting into voiceover, getting
size
into...
28.
I was gonna ask.
That was the next question. Now, who was one of the first people that you met when you got into this work that you geeked out over, that you saw for the first time?
First person? Well, Rob Paulson. So Rob, like the reason why, one of the reasons I thought of voiceover as a professional career was because I watched Animaniacs.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first times that I thought, oh, this could be a career, I want pancakes or a waffle. This tastes awful. Is that all you've got? And watching Jess and hello nurse, and watching Paul and Rob, rather, I feel like it flipped a switch that made me think this was possible because I could do the voices. I could do Dr. Scratch and Sniff. Like I could literally just do the voices on the show. And I'm like, well, shit, I can do that. Then why don't I try to go do this as a career, right?
Yeah.
There was a TV pilot called Pizza Face that I don't think ever made it to air for MTV. I went in the room and it was me. Oh God. Who was the guy who played Samwise in Lord of the Rings? Yeah, sorry. Sean Astin and Rob. There's one other person who I can't remember. And I was just like I booked this pilot and I was like ecstatic. I mean, I'd been on Nickelodeon, I'd been on a few things. So I was like, this is cool. Then all of a sudden you're in the room with one of your idols and you go, this is for real, bro. This is for real right now. I better bring it. And I remember the whole time thinking, I wonder if he thought I was any good. And
did you get to ask him if he thought you were any good?
No, because that was it. I mean, he left, he did his thing or whatever, and it never saw the light of day. However, I have gotten the chance to work with him multiple times throughout my career. And one of my favorite chances to work with him was on Red Lantern, the animated series. I'm sorry, Green Lantern, the animated series, where I played the Red Lantern Razor. Have you guys seen GL Toss at all? Oh, you got to watch. Green Lantern, the animated series, was a short-lived animated series that Bruce Timm created with Giancarlo Volpe and Jim Krieg. And Giancarlo did the art and stuff for Airbender on Nickelodeon. And did some work on Clone Wars. Yeah. And Jim Krieg is just a devastating, hilarious, and wonderful writer. So Rob came in to guest star and play this squid-like creature, and I play this Red Lantern who actually ends up fighting on the side of the Green Lanterns. And that day when Rob came in, I said, hey, Rob, just so you know, I'm going to turn your pages for you all day. And it's just like one of those respect things you do for somebody in the business who is somebody you look up to, is you turn their pages for them. Nobody does this really anymore. Hell, most people use iPads. But
I'll click the side of your screen for you.
I turned Rob's pages the entire time he was there. And it was nice. We got to have a conversation. I told him how important he was to me. And he said such nice things, to me that I was like, okay, I guess I've made it when Rob says nice things. So.
You're like, yay.
Yeah.
On the inside, I'm happy.
Well, actually, you're very talented. You're a very talented man. All right, here we go. And take two.
What else? You literally probably have 10 more minutes with me because there's not anything happening. There's not coming down the street.
Well, so I wouldn't mind talking Star Wars for a little bit.
Sure.
No, don't get this guy on Star Wars. Don't do it.
Have you heard of it?
Starts raging.
No.
Yeah.
I just got done.
My biggest freak out moment was when I'm standing there in Clone Wars and I got cast to play Lux, and Dave Filoni, who has created The Mandalorian and Rebels, and Dave is standing there and he's giving us the backstory, because a lot of episodes of Clone Wars were very political, a lot of backstory heavy. So he's speaking for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then I asked him a question about Ahsoka and Lux, about whether or not they actually do fall in love, if it's that type of thing. Right. And he goes, well, George is 100% sure on this, that Jedis don't fall in love. And as soon as he said the word George, all I heard was because I was like, he's talking about George Lucas. And, I grew up playing with Star Wars figures, and I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. And so it was really a crazy moment to realize that he was just talking to George about my character and this whole story. Yeah. Yesterday on the phone.
It was a great story too.
Ahsoka, you're ruining my plans. This is a holotrace device. Anyway,
I liked that little mini arc in the story. It was, what did you? Would it wrap your storyline within the thing? That was like one of the last two seasons.
Yeah, Lux came and went a couple times. Kind of the beginning of the rebellion is kind of where you left him, and he, just sort of frustrated love with Ahsoka. That's my theme between a lot of the shows that I'm in with Young Justice and Green Lantern the animated series. And I always play the guy who doesn't get the girl.
I was a little bummed they didn't bring him back for Rebels, the character.
Yeah, I was a little bummed too, but I don't think Dave likes the character of Lux. I think he's probably indifferent to me as a person, but I think he never liked Lux. He always said things about Lux that were derogatory. Like he just didn't like this foppish young idiot, and Ahsoka's such a badass, and it always seems like she's saving Lux's bacon, and he's just thinks he's more important than he is. And I just don't think Dave liked the character. I'm sure they're all his children in a way or another, but I'm pretty sure that Lex was not high on his list of people he wanted to see ever again. And
it's just
how it goes.
The idea of romance in that world. I know you said that.
Yeah, it's anathema to that.
That they said, Jedis don't fall in love, but I mean, clearly at one point Anakin did. I mean, George Lucas.
Well, right. That's why he's not a Jedi. I think he's trying to see what happened there.
Technically, Ahsoka's not a Jedi either because she walked away.
Correct.
So
and that was part of the thing, right? Is all these different seeds that lead you to see, because she really wanted to have a relationship with Lux. You could see it the way they portrayed it.
Yeah.
And for a Jedi to have that place available to them emotionally where they could fall in love, and it's just like that's when she knew it just wasn't for her. It's just one of the many things, right?
And it's crazy because romance is so tied into all of it, from episode 1 to episode 9 with Rey and
Kylo
you can't
Ren. Not have a love story.
And so to have that dictate the storyline in such a way, it seems pretty skillful to work it in and still say
tough.
It's not allowed.
It's tough. But I think that it's also real life, right? Like we don't get to control who we fall in love with.
Right.
We really are not the arbiters of that our ultimate fate there. And it's difficult. You'd like to think that you're in control of a lot, as a human. And when you fall in love with somebody, you're hopeless. You're helpless. You're kind of along for the ride.
Kind of,
and that can have its consequences and be ugly. And that's what I do as an actor, is try to bring all that to the front to show people that it can be glorious and terrible and unrequited or stilted or not allowed to flourish. And that's what makes these stories enjoyable to watch. It's open to interpretation, just like doing Shakespeare, which I love doing Shakespeare. I'm a huge Shakespeare fan. It's wildly open to interpretation. And that's okay. That's what the best myths are.
I don't think we've met a voice actor that doesn't love Shakespeare.
Yep.
And constantly doing plays.
Yeah,
everybody we've talked to, we've begun asking, and we didn't even bother. I don't know why we didn't remember, is what's your favorite one to act in and what's your favorite one to watch?
Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in its petty pace from day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have but lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That's when the Scottish king's wife dies. So sad.
Yeah. So what's your favorite one to watch and what's your favorite one to act in?
I think
that is really good.
Probably both the Scottish play.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
That's the first time we've gotten the same answer for both.
Yeah. I like Hamlet in general, but it can be such a grandstanding thing for the guy who plays Hamlet, right? And to me, the delicious relationship between Lady Macbeth and her husband is just so wonderful to watch, because how many times have we as men been weak in a moment where we should be seizing power, and only to have our lady say to us, look, dude, if this is what you want, you got to go for it. Get off your butt and do it. And that's literally what's happening. Literally, Lady Macbeth is the steel in that relationship, forcing against the wind. And Macbeth is like worried about what the consequences are going to be and everything. And he's being manipulated by the witches and, you know, does this awful, horrible thing. Yeah. And then one of his biggest regrets is the fact that he lost the love of his life.
Right.
I mean, Lady Macbeth is the love of his life. The reason he got to this place, to this height. And without her, there's just not much worth living for, because he gained it all for her and for them together. And, you know, think of that. Like, you spent your time working really, really hard to build this wonderful life, and you lose your wife. And now what is it all for? You didn't have any kids, you know? Yeah. So my solar installer is here on that note.
All right.
Well,
the very serious note, you know, so yeah, Shakespeare is a blast. So
we always like to have our guests do a bump for their episode.
Okay. What do you want me to say?
So we just do, you know, who you are, characters you play, and then you're listening to Two Dads in a Podcast.
Sure. This is Jason Spisak, and I play the Joker in Kid Flash and Forager and Hal Jordan and a whole bunch of other stuff. And you're watching Two Dads Podcast, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Hey, this is Felix, and you've been listening to the Two Dads in a Podcast interview series. For more content, like and subscribe to this channel. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitch, and everywhere podcasts are available. To help us bring you more of these amazing interviews, you can support us on our Patreon. Just follow the links below, and thanks for watching.